Hello, I'm Daniel Burnham. Thanks for joining me here at the Chicago Cultural Center, one of the buildings I wish I had designed. Amazing. I was lucky enough to hitch a ride in one of H.G. Wells' time machines in order to be with you here today. I'm here to talk about how my vision changed Chicago and influenced America. A nice middle school boy helped me put slides of myself and my buildings on this newfangled contraption. Forgive me if I have some difficulties with it. Some of the words that have been used to describe me are influential, visionary, compassionate, dreamer, and my personal favorite, wise. In case you were wondering, I was born in Henderson, New York on September 4th, 1846, and raised under the teachings of the Swedenborgian Church of New Jerusalem. One of the main teachings of our faith is man is to be useful to society and be of service to others. I've adhered this my whole life. We moved to Chicago when I was 9 years old, and I graduated from Dearborn High School. In school, I was a poor student and only excelled in art. As I got older, I decided to apply for Harvard and Yale. Unfortunately, they slammed the door on my face. I was left with no job nor money, and luckily my father apprenticed me under the famous architect William Le Baron Jenny, father of the skyscraper. Even after all my hard work, my father still wasn't sure if this was a good job for me. Luckily, my mother stepped in and told him this job was useful, and immediately my father agreed. Since then, I've always loved architecture, but never realized my full potential until I met John Wilborn Root 1 year later. We were like carrots and peas. He was a brilliant interior architect, and I was an excellent exterior architect. We formed Burnham and Root in 1873. Here are some of the buildings we designed: the Masonic Temple, the Rookery Building, the Montauk Building, the Union Stockyard Gate, the Kent House, the Reliance Building, and Marshall Fields, though now I hear it is called Macy's. Root and I designed over 67 public buildings and 146 private homes. And speaking of private homes, Root and I redesigned the home of John Sherman, where I met his lovely daughter, Margaret Sherman. It was love at first sight. 3 years later, I finally got up the gumption to propose to her, and I was on the top of the world, and nothing could go wrong. Root and I were asked to design the Columbian Exposition of 1893. After the first meeting, as all fairy tales go, everything went wrong. We had 24 months to complete 200 buildings on only 600 acres. John Root, my friend and colleague, caught pneumonia and was at death's door. He died 3 days later. After his death, I was almost ready to cancel construction, but I pulled myself together and called on resources I didn't even know I had within me. I took over Root's job as well as mine, and my team paraded around the fairgrounds every morning to supervise. We wanted it to be a fully functional city within a city. The fair had a profound effect on architecture, the arts, and Chicago's self-image. Take a look for yourself. The Science and Industry Building, the Women's Building, the only building designed by a woman named Sophia Hayden, the Administration Building. Most of the buildings were based on classical architecture and were made of white stucco, hence the name, the White City. Over 27 million people attended in only 6 months. I heard a rumor that people were even giving up their burial plot money to come to my fair. 6 months after the fair started, a terrible fire occurred. The only building that didn't burn down or crumble was your Museum of Science and Industry. The only building I meant to last. And when all of this was over, I hadn't seen my wife or children in 2 years. I was diagnosed with diabetes in 1906. Back then, it was a death sentence. The doctor told me I only had 3 months to live. 3 years. I was hired by the Philippines to design my own city any way I chose. Obviously, I could not resist. Manila had a wide open landscape, and I loved the green space. I planned a city around this open space. The project was disrupted, though, and to my horror was never finished. Though luckily, they did create a beautiful drive along the ocean, which was one of my visions. Back in Chicago, I was working on a plan to make Chicago with wider streets, greener parks, and an unencumbered lakefront. My design, unfortunately, was not accepted until a group called the Commercial Club of Chicago raised millions of dollars to help sponsor my plan, and it was put into motion in 1909. Here were some of the principles of my plan. Improve the lakefront. Create highway systems outside the city. Improve railway terminals. Develop elevated traction system for freight and passengers. Establish outdoor park systems. Arrange streets and avenues systematically to move people in and out of the business district, and also to develop intellectual life and civic administration to unify the city. Some of the important improvements I suggested were quite successful and apparent today are bridges over the Chicago River connecting business district to the residential development, the Clarence Buckingham Memorial Fountain and Garden, the Union Station, U.S. Post Office, and Grant Park. My designs were inspired by other beautiful cities, such as Athens' Acropolis, Rome's public baths and aqueducts, Paris's boulevards, plazas, and fountains, Washington, D.C.'s malls connecting the government and monuments. Actually, me, myself, and I designed Washington, D.C., so I was inspired by my own design. The result was a beautiful 24-mile-long lakefront system, which include parks, beaches, harbors filled with unlimited recreational activities, not to mention Lakeshore Drive. Though when I designed it, I expected people to drive slowly along the lakefront, observing its beauty. On my way in the time machine, I observed fancy new automobiles speeding at an alarming rate. I found out today that I'm to die on June 1st, 1912 in Germany. But while I'm here, I'm thinking of checking into Northwestern Memorial Hospital for treatment of my diabetes. So if you hear the date of my demise has changed, you know why. In the meantime, allow me to make a few suggestions on how you can further improve your fair city. Make everyone drive those newfangled smart cars to eliminate pollution. Make the city accessible for people with disabilities. Plan affordable family housing that's also beautiful. Provide affordable, top-quality daycare for families with working mothers. If at first you don't succeed, learn from your mistakes, do your homework, and try again next time. If you get it, call me, though my fee has gone up considerably. And here's my favorite quote, most commonly attributed to me, though I don't remember if I wrote it or not, but it sums it all up. Make no little plans, for they have no magic to stir men's blood and probably will themselves not be realized. Make big plans, aim high in hope and work, remembering that a noble, logical diagram, once recorded, will not die.